So in this video, I'm gonna be giving you a few different tips on how to take better photos if you're inside a hotel room. I'm gonna be telling you what mistakes to avoid and how to take more dynamic photos. I'm gonna be using my Canon EOS R, but you can use any camera that you want, including your cell phone, because the same rules are gonna apply to all of them. So let's not waste any more time, subscribe to the channel if you're into camera filmmaking and drones, and here we go. Alright guys, so the reason I wanted to make this video is because I've noticed that every time that me and my family go on vacation, we spend a significant amount of time inside the hotel room, either waiting for everyone to get ready or just waiting for the hotel to open up the facilities so we can do something. And that's a good portion of your vacation that you will spend indoors if you think about it. And also hotel rooms for the most part are very challenging to take photos because you either have poor lighting, which makes it difficult to take pictures. It's a small space, so you have to be aware of what lenses you're gonna be using. And number 3, some of them are just boring on the inside and there's nothing to shoot. And that's when I decided to make this video, so you can learn a few techniques on how to get better photos whenever you're indoors. So tip number 1 is gonna be choosing the right lens and the right aperture. Like I mentioned before, hotel rooms are typically small and have poor lighting. And in fact, many of them don't even have ceiling lights anymore. And that means 2 things. 1, that you need to choose an appropriate focal length to accommodate for the small space. And number 2, that you need a fast lens that's gonna let you shoot in poor lighting. My 2 lenses of choice for the Canon EOS R system are gonna be the 35mm f1.8 and the 50mm f1.2. Other camera brands have similar lenses, so you can choose one that is similar. With these 2 lenses, you're gonna have pretty much all your bases covered for either if you're shooting in low light or if you're shooting in a small room. Tip number 2, and this is probably the most important one, bring additional lighting. Because for the most part, you're gonna control the lighting situation inside the hotel room, you should always consider bringing additional lighting. This light right here from a company called LumeCube. They're very small, they're compact, you can mount the light in any camera, and they can make a huge difference if you find yourself in a low light situation. I highly recommend that you check it out, links are gonna be down below. Tip number 3 is gonna be camera settings. Number 1, never shoot in auto mode and never use auto white balance. That's gonna make things look worse because the camera is gonna choose all the settings for you. And that's gonna make image quality look pretty bad, especially when shooting indoors. Use always manual mode, get a good white balance, either with a gray card or if you don't have any, try shooting a picture of the bed sheets. And try to keep the ISO as low as possible. I usually keep it under 400. Open up the aperture of the lens the widest it can go. For this particular case, I was using an aperture between f1.8 and f1.2. And for the shutter speed, at least at a minimum, try to double that of your focal length. If, for example, you're shooting with a 50mm lens, keep the shutter speed at least 100, which is double that of your focal length. And lastly, choose the correct mirroring mode, which for indoor portrait shooting should be either center weight or even spot mirroring. Mistake number 1, and this is a common one, and it's not taking advantage of the lights that are already provided inside the room. Look at this example right here where I take a couple of photos with the lights turned off on the background. You can see that they're just okay photos, but there's no background separation and there's no depth. However, now I'm gonna turn the background lights on. You can see that when I do that, I immediately add more dimension and depth to all the photos, making them more interesting and improving the quality of the photos right away. Mistake number 2 is not knowing how to position your subject towards a natural light source. Take a look at this example right here where I position my subject with the natural light source behind her back and the camera is looking straight at her face. You can immediately notice that the background is completely overexposed, there's a lack of contrast and saturation in her face, and the photo looks washed out. And that's because I didn't position her in a way that her face would be better lit. I had to do some photo editing to make this image usable. However, just by moving the subject and the camera closer to the light source, but in a different direction, where the light is illuminating her face more consistently, you will notice that right away the photos will be looking way better with more contrast and more saturation. And finally, mistake number 3 is not using any of the foreground elements that you can find around you. Something that I like to add to all of my photos is some type of foreground element. Inside a hotel room, you can always incorporate bed sheets, bathroom mirrors, pillows, and even windows and practical lights. Use them to your advantage to create more interesting and less boring photos. Alright guys, that's it for today. If you want to see my other videos, you can click right here. And as always, don't forget to subscribe for more camera filmmaking and drone videos. See you in the next one.